deserve to have the best physical, mental, spiritual. Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis.
Hey, welcome everybody for my very first ever podcast. I'm going to be doing the first one solo, and of course I'll have guests as we go. But this is just kind of a first time go, and we're going to see how it rolls. But I definitely I want to share my passion with regards to just where I came from and what I'm up to now, and just kind of give you an insight of the inside of Mike Hollis's brain and where he is every single day, what he is doing, and just where my passion lies. Just a little bit about me. I grew up in Spokane, Washington, a small town in eastern side of Washington State, and went to college at University of Idaho. Go Vandals! And growing up as a small kid, I always played sports, and I always wanted to make sure that I was, fit and healthy, and I was always active, of course. So I really was keen on being physical and very active, and kind of, watching what I ate a little bit. I'm not going to say I was the best at my diet back in the day, and even today I'm not the best ever, but I do supplement, and I do take things that are very serious for my health. And so, basically with regards to just my mindset and where I've been and what I've done with the NFL, I played 9 years in the NFL as a kicker, and I shouldn't have, based on my size, my athletic ability, my lack of strength. I was not cut out for it in those three regards, but I actually did, and there's a lot of reasons why I was able to do what I did at that level, the highest level of football in the world, and I'm very proud of that. But with regards to just, moving forward and joining the real world, as I did after I retired years ago, maybe 20 something years ago, I'm basically, now, I was getting paid a lot of money for playing a football game. And when I retired, it was now to become a grown up and a big boy. So I had to put my big boy pants on. Even though my big boy pants were on playing football, it's very stressful. And at the highest level of football, the expectation level is pretty high. So I've dealt with a lot of ups and downs throughout my entire life. And I just want to share my passion, share my experiences, because I know that there's been a lot of things that I've been able to do that I was not really aware that I was able to do. And so we all, no matter who you are, we are all much more capable of what we think we are. It's all a mindset. It's a lifestyle change. It's you just being you and following your passion in everything that you do. And, I believe that I was put on this earth to help people. And, that's what I really want to do. I really want to make sure that people have the same opportunities that I did, and make them aware that there is opportunity. A lot of people get a little discouraged, thinking there's no opportunity for them. They're not going to be successful at whatever they're doing. But I'm here to tell you that there are ways to become successful. It's just about your mindset and how you think about things. So with that said, I'm gonna pass it off to a word from our sponsor, and then we'll get right into the nuts and bolts of Mike Hollis and inside his brain.
At 3, we want to give you the true health benefits that you're paying for, something you can feel and see a difference quickly. Each product is packed with powerful plant-based nutrients that are combined through a proprietary curation process and then infused with innovative cellular absorption technologies to ensure the nutrients absorb into the cells for maximum wellness. The quality and effectiveness of our life-changing products is evident by their approval to be included in the well-known Prescriber's Digital Reference, or PDR. PDR has been a valuable resource to the medical doctors and providers in the healthcare community for decades. Our products are GMO-free, clinically studied, and third-party tested, all designed to support health and proactive wellness for everyone.
Yes, Mike Hollis is a man from like I said, a small little town of Spokane, Washington, on the eastern side of the state. The Pacific, the inland Northwest is what we call ourselves. And I was born in a small town of Kellogg, Idaho. It's not the cereal, so Tony the Tiger doesn't live there. It's basically just it's still a small town, about 2,000 people, maybe 3,000 by now, but. I moved over to Spokane Valley years ago, and when I was about 2 or 3 years old, and basically grew up there. And I've always been someone who has been very passionate about friendships and just making sure that I'm really involved. I wanted to be involved in everything that I did. With regards to school, I wasn't the most studious academically, but with regards to athletics, I really excelled. I found that playing sports was a great way to communicate with people, and you learn a lot in sports with regards to accountability and teamwork, and there's a lot to be said. And when people are growing up and involved in whatever it is, it could be music or anything like that, drama, anything like that, that you're on a team, and really that's where I've always found myself feeling the best, with regards to and it really kind of relies on the accountability. As crazy as it sounds, you like, oh, I got a team, to help me with things. Yes, that's great. It's all fine and dandy. Even the corporate world, you work in teams on projects. I understand all that, but my mindset was more of an accountability mindset. I wanted to be accountable to my teammates, and in turn them accountable for me. If you look at the kind of the aspects of teamwork, you think of things where there's each individual has their own job within a team, and that's exactly what it was in football with me specifically. Although my job was a little bit more notable, except for quarterback is a definitely notable position, but a kicker, everybody knows that one person on the team, so it's hard to hide as a kicker in the NFL and in any level really in the sport of football. But I also love pressure, even though I was a wreck on game days, but. Just going back and again, this initial podcast, we're going to be talking a lot about just my history and where I came from and how I did it. And then we're going to talk a lot about where my passion is and why I believe that I want to help people be like me in a sense where they're not going to take no for an answer. Because I heard a lot of those trying to get in the NFL at 5'8", 180 pounds, and as a very average athlete. I could kick a football, and some teams, for example, the Jacksonville Jaguars, Tom Coughlin thought I was too short, and he's like, we want to have a bigger kicker, and we just wouldn't take no for an answer. My coach Jim Gaetano and myself, he actually it was back before cell phones. He actually got on the nearest payphone, after we got done kicking one day, and he called up the Jaguars and said, basically just let him have it. He said, you guys don't have a clue what you're talking about. Mike kicks like he's 6'2". Why would it matter his size? There's a lot of, again, hurdles that I had to jump through. And, this first half of this podcast, this initial podcast, I'm just going to explain a little bit about my road to the NFL. And these are stories that not a lot of people really know about, and how many hurdles I had to take getting to the level of the highest level of football in the NFL, which, as far as a goal, I didn't know if that was something that it was a realistic goal. My goal was more like, be as good as I can be. Me specifically, with all those three things I had: lack of athletic ability, lack of size and strength. I wanted to be as good as I can be, and whatever level that got me, I have to be okay with, because a certain technique that I learned was really the primary reason why I made it. I just took advantage of some things that I could, and that's another reason why I'm telling you that with regards to anything you're going to do in life, there are things that you have to your advantage that you don't even really know of. You may not even realize this. And maybe the people that are turning you down all the time, saying no to you all the time, they don't even realize you have these certain secret attributes that you can actually apply to whatever skill it is you're doing. And one day you'll wake up and you'll make that team, or you'll find that job. And next thing you know, people are like, wow, I didn't think he was that good, or she's that good. That's crazy. So that's the thing that I've always battled with regards to just the negative attitude towards me, and the rejection. And I just never accepted rejection, because I knew in my heart what I was capable of doing. So going into the specifics of getting in the NFL, when I was playing high school football, you guys might recognize the name Jason Hanson. He was a kicker for the Detroit Lions for like 21 years. Incredible career. He grew up in Spokane, Washington as well. He's 2 years older than me, and we played football and soccer against each other in Spokane Valley. Spokane in general, because he went to Meade High School, which was on the north side. So I was able to play against a guy like that. And even back then, people knew who Jason Hanson was. And then he went on to, go to school at Washington State and, obviously on a full scholarship and all that. And then he gets drafted to the Detroit Lions. And going back to my high school days, Jason had a brother by the name of Travis. Okay. So Travis was also a kicker at Meade High School. Well, Travis was my age. And so Travis and I were kind of the two top guys in the Greater Spokane League at the time. And when it was all said and done, both of our senior years, we graduated the same exact year. I was better. I was ranked the number one kicker in the Greater Spokane League, and Travis was the number two kicker. But guess what? With my size and colleges who just overlooked me, figuratively and literally, overlooked me. They chose to go with Travis. And I say it was University of Washington that gave Travis the full scholarship to go over there and play football. And so I had some recognition. I had some letters and I reached out to a lot of colleges, but of the colleges I felt like I was good enough to play at, none of them had scholarships available. They all wanted me to, you can walk on and maybe earn the position, but most of those teams had kickers that were pretty good. And I probably wouldn't have a chance of playing at that level that early. So it wasn't like a total disappointment, because I just knew that, I was good enough to play at those schools. But if they already had a guy that was set, I'll give you an example. Washington State University had a guy by the name of Aaron Price. And the head coach of that team was named Mike Price. Well, guess what? Aaron was Mike Price's son. So clearly he's going to be the kicker for Washington State University. And so I knew that one school was out of the picture. And in Idaho had a guy that was pretty good. Thane Doyle was the guy's name. He was pretty good. And so I knew that they were going to stick with him. So when it was all said and done, and my biggest thing is I wanted to earn a scholarship. And so I really, really worked hard on, earning a scholarship. It didn't matter what level of football at the point. I just wanted to play football and have my tuition and whatever I could get, paid for. So I went to a couple of junior colleges in the Washington State area. I went to Walla Walla Community College and also Wenatchee Valley College. Walla Walla is where Drew Bledsoe is from, by the way, for you football fanatics out there. I actually committed to Wenatchee Valley College. And so I played for the Wenatchee Valley Knights for the last 2 years of their actual football program. As soon as I was, that the second year when I finished the season, they had actually dropped their football program. So I was on the very last team of that school's existence. And so, my first couple of years in junior college, I was pretty good. I was a blue chip All-American my first year. And as a freshman and a sophomore, I was still pretty good. I didn't get that status again, but when I finished my 2 years of junior college, I got my AA degree and everything. And now I was really back in the same boat as I was 2 years prior to that. So here I am trying to find a place to go. And it was exactly like it was when I was coming out of high school. And so it was discouraging. Yes, don't get me wrong. But again, I knew what my abilities were, and I wanted to play really bad because I really enjoyed it. And I knew that this was a big passion of mine. And so, long story short, in the college world, John L. Smith, the head coach of the University of Idaho Vandals, out of the blue gave me a call. And he had said that they had recruited a transfer kicker from Michigan State. He was one of the Van Horn brothers. Kendall Van Horn was his name. And so he was a good kicker, really good kicker. Apparently, of course, before they reached out to me, Kendall wasn't doing as good as he, could have been doing. And that's why they reached out to me, is because they weren't really sold on him yet. And John L. Smith just gave it to me straight up. He said, listen, we have a scholarship that we plan on giving Kendall. But with regards to, our thought process now, we're not really sure if he's going to be our guy, and we want you to come in and compete with him. And either one of you guys could earn the scholarship. It's up in the air for both of you, either one of you. And so, University of Idaho was only about 75 miles, a little, south east, just a smidge east, because Spokane's right there on the Idaho border. So I went, 75 miles south, about an hour and a half down through the Palouse. Again, for those who know a little bit about the Palouse in the Northwest. Washington State University is 8 miles away from the University of Idaho. I actually lived on campus my first year at Washington State University when I went to school at Idaho. I just drove 8 miles to school every day for practice and classes, of course. So getting into University of Idaho, as a risk. And of course, they have a dome. So that was another thing that's, kickers really like. We're in the Northwest, it does snow, it gets cold. And really, the idea really as a kicker is you want to, play in some good conditions. It's tough to play in the outdoor field conditions where it's snowing and raining and really cold. But so I chose to go to Idaho. I accepted his challenge, we'll call it. And eventually beat out Kendall and won that scholarship, and played 2 years at the University of Idaho. And in all honesty, I wasn't that great of a kicker. I mean, my stats were not great. Okay, I'll be flat out honest with you. It's one thing you're going to learn about me on this podcast. I'm an incredibly transparent person. I'm not holding anything back because my philosophy is you got to be real. You got to be real, and it's okay because we all have failures. We all will fail at some point, in many points, if we, depending on what we're doing. So I went to the University of Idaho, played 2 years there. Again, I attempted a lot of long field goals. I had a good leg. My kickoffs were pretty good. I was kicking the ball pretty well, a lot of touchbacks. I think I still hold a record for the most consecutive extra points at the school at 96, I believe. In the 2 years I was there, I made all 77, I believe, my senior year. We were really good. We put up a lot of points, and I was getting a lot of kicking. And so I was able to showcase my skills. But University of Idaho was a 1AA, Division I AA school. So essentially it's FBS or FCS, I'm sorry. So FCS nowadays is essentially the same thing as Division I AA. And with regards to, getting, the next level exposure, the only two higher levels at the time, there really wasn't even arena football at the time. So I had two options, the NFL or the CFL, the Canadian Football League. Clearly, I wanted to see if I could, get an opportunity to play in the NFL levels. And so I was able to get some again, letters and some recruiting. And again, kind of back in the same boat I was 2 times already. Coming out of high school, no one was looking at me. I was, they had some interest, but I'll just, and then coming out of my junior college, the same thing. Well, some teams had some interest. Well, walk on, see what you can do. And I felt like I was deserving of at least a scholarship. And so I kind of treated the NFL as that opportunity as well. And fortunately, I was able to get a position. My first couple workouts, I worked out for the Vikings. They came to watch me in Idaho, and I kicked for the scout in there in the dome there. And then after the draft, I knew I wasn't going to get drafted. First off, I'm a kicker. Second off, I'm from a 1AA school. So, I didn't have a lot of leverage. The NFL was not knocking on my door. So I knew I was not going to get drafted. So immediately after the draft, Coach John L. Smith gave me a call, and he said, hey, the Atlanta Falcons want to fly you into Atlanta and have you work out. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I get to go to the East Coast, never been to the East Coast. I get to work out for an NFL team on their campus, essentially. And so I did. And Norm Johnson was the kicker at the time. And there was 5 of us working out to be a kicker for the Falcons, Atlanta Falcons. And Norm Johnson comes in the locker room, and he stops and he looks around. He can tell we're all kickers, and he kind of just gives us a nod, like, "Oh, okay." He kind of just brushed it off or whatever. But it was kind of funny, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's Norm Johnson," because he played for the Seattle Seahawks as well. So I grew up watching the Seahawks, and Norm Johnson was a kicker for them, so I knew exactly who that was. And so I was kind of starstruck in a sense, so anyways, we get into the tryout, and of the 5 kickers, one guy, Todd Peterson, did the best. And again, I was flat out honest. I didn't kick off real well. My field goals were okay, but they signed Todd Peterson. I was happy for him. He did the best. He earned it. He deserved it. So moving forward, the very next weekend, I got another call from John L. Smith and said, hey, the San Diego Chargers want to fly you down. So I'm like, great, this is pretty cool. Things are kind of working out. So I fly down to San Diego and I work out for the Chargers. They only had one other guy too. So it was just me and this other guy that I never recognized the name. I never even knew who he was. So I get an opportunity to work out for the Chargers. And a funny side note, after it was all said and done, I went into general manager's office, Bobby Beathard, and he sat me down. He said, "Well, how'd you think you did today?" And I said, "Well, I'm battling a little bit of a cold, but I think I did pretty good, considering, I think I missed one field goal and kickoffs could have been better, but I think I did pretty good." And he said, "Well, we think you did good too. And we want to sign you, but there's a problem." And I was like, okay, what's the problem? Well, Mike, we don't have any money. And in my mind, I'm like, and so what's the problem? I didn't care. I'm just this rookie that's coming fresh out of college. I want to just be on an NFL team. I don't care if I'm getting paid. But what he was talking about was he was assuming or saying essentially was the fact that they didn't have any bonus money for me. And after the fact, he told me that, "Oh, no, we don't have any signing bonus for you." I'm like, okay, well, I have no leverage. So that's not real. That's a moot point at that point. So ultimately, moving forward, I spent a lot of the off-season program, training with the Chargers, and it was early on when I got signed with them. So I had time to meet some of the guys and learn a little bit about that team. And John Carney was one of them. John Carney was a legendary kicker. He was in the NFL for 23 years. Incredibly great man. He took me under his wing. He taught me a lot. He had already been established there in San Diego. I knew I was just going to be a camp kicker, which is exactly what happened. So moving forward with that, I got into one game out of the 5 they had total in preseason. We played in a Hall of Fame game against the Falcons, of course, and Norm Johnson. I reminded him that I worked out for the Falcons the year before, or that same year actually, and so he remembered me. But moving forward, after I think the 3rd preseason game, I kicked a field goal and one kickoff against the Houston Oilers. Now I'm aging myself. That tells you how old I am. So with regards to that, they did release me, but I stuck around for another week because John Carney and Darren Bennett wanted me to stick around. So I stayed for like a week or a few days. I can't remember how long it was, but I hung out with the guys. I just got cut, but I love the guys so much. We just want to hang out and I hung out with Junior Seau in his restaurant and played cards up in his office with the guys, and a lot of cool experiences. After that, this is where it gets a little tricky because at the time I got cut, Bobby Beathard, the general manager, and my agent at the time both told me, don't enroll in school this next semester because, I know that you still have some more classes to go and maybe an internship, but don't do that because the World League, the NFL Europe essentially was starting up again, and we're going to enter you in the draft, and I know that you're going to get drafted. Okay, so here I am thinking, okay, well, I'm not going to enroll in school. I'm going to keep working out. I've got my drive. I can't wait for this draft because they tell me I'm going to draft it. I'm pretty sure they know what they're talking about. Well, the draft came and went, and guess what? Again, overlooked again. So how many times is that now? 4 or 5 times that I've been overlooked and said no to, essentially. So that was a little bit of a dagger in my heart. I was a little torn up about that one. But guess what it did? It lit a fire under me, and it is added fuel to my fire already. So I essentially ran with that. That was my incentive for actually making an NFL roster at some point in my life, was the fact that I've been denied so many dang times. So again, I enrolled in school the very next semester, of course, but during that time, it was kind of a blessing in disguise because there was a lot of kickers that played in the NFL Europe and, had a long season, of course. And so I had the opportunity. I had a guy by the name of Eddie Howard, who was on my team in Idaho, who was a punter, who was a year below me. And I, went back to school, of course, after getting cut and all that. And I said, Eddie, if you're getting any looks from NFL teams, let me know, because I'm going to be on the other end of the field kicking during your workout. And he's a great friend of mine, still to this day, great friend of mine. Love him to death. He's such a good guy. And that happened with the Jaguars. Jaguars came to look at Eddie, and guess what? I was on the other end of the field kicking, and we were in the dome. So when you kick a good ball, it sounds really good. So after Eddie was done with his workout, I went over and introduced myself to the scout. Rick Mueller was the guy's name. And he said, yeah, I saw you kick. You look like you're pretty good. And I'd mentioned I was with the Chargers and all that. And so long story short, after that happened, I had an opportunity that the Jaguars wanted to get some film on me. And so I sent the film in, and actually the Chargers were actually wanting me to come back. And John Carney had gone to the Pro Bowl that year. And of course, if he was sitting right here next to me, he'd say Mike, you pushed me enough to make me a better kicker. And that's why I went to the Pro Bowl. And he's told me that personally. So I feel honored to hear that from a guy like that. But, going back to San Diego against a Pro Bowl guy, my odds were not good at making a team. So I told Bobby Beathard, I said, listen, can you give me a couple weeks? The Jaguars have an interest. And by then, my agent was talking kind of back and forth, and it kind of stopped, and there was nothing happening for a good week or so or more. And finally, I had a conversation with my family on a Sunday night, and I told them, Monday morning I'm going to call the Chargers and go back. I can't lose another opportunity to get into another training camp. Well, that Monday morning, actually, yes, the phone rings. It's not the Chargers; it's actually the Jaguars. And and I'd worked out for Rick Mueller on another note in Central Washington. We met halfway, and this was after Tom Coughlin said I was too short, and he basically talked him into working me out one time, and then that's when the pause happened. And so I get on the phone with them, and they say, "Hey, Coach Coughlin wants to fly you in. We want to see you kick in first person. We want to see you live in Jacksonville kicking for us." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so cool!" So they flew me in on a Tuesday. I worked out on a Wednesday. I was the only kicker, so I knew that if I just did well, that I would be signed, hopefully, and that happened. So I even got a $5,000 signing bonus at the time. I had no leverage. I was honored to even get that much money, and I just had my first child. Mason was born about 2 weeks after the time that I had signed with the Jaguars. So that was my road, essentially. There's probably a lot more missing pieces. I don't want to bore you to death, but there's a lot of things that I went through as far as a hurdle and hurdles and just so many things that were really daggers that I could have given up at any time. And I didn't, because I knew my worth. I knew what I was worth. I had witnessed it myself. I lived it firsthand, clearly. I knew that I was very comparable to NFL kickers, and I got that opportunity. Thank you from my bottom of my heart, for Tom Coughlin taking a risk and a chance on me. And then, of course, when I got into camp with the Jaguars, I beat out Scott Sisson, who was a veteran at the time, great dude too. So a lot of great experiences getting into the NFL. Heck of a road. But the rest is history, obviously. And here's a little side note as well. When I was told that I made the team, we call him the Grim Reaper. It's a player personnel guy that comes through the locker room and tells you whether you made the team or not, basically saying, Coach Coughlin wants to see you in his office, bring your playbook. That's code for your cut. He came right next to me. Scott Sisson, Jimmy Smith was sitting right there as well. And he looked at us and he said, Scott, go see Tom Coughlin and bring your playbook. And I was like, oh my gosh. I just made the NFL. I just literally, that was a eye opener for me. That was real. And if you ask me how long I was excited, my honest truth, about 10 seconds, because I had really made the NFL officially, but that challenge was now done. Okay. So I made a goal, if you want to call that a goal. My goal was to play at the highest level as possibly I could. And that was, of course, the highest level. And I made it. Well, 10 seconds into that, I thought, well, crap, what do I do now? Well, I'm not just going to coast and just, be complacent. So I knew that I had to work even harder to maintain, my job and keep my job. And, of course, I missed my very first kick as a Jacksonville Jaguar. So I'm off to a great start. But then my next kick was actually the first points in Jacksonville franchise history. So, I made that short field goal. And then, finishing off that first year, I was like 20 of 27, not the greatest year. So I was hopeful to get another contract to come back, which they did honor that in another 1 year minimum deal. And my next year I was like 30 of 36 and I was alternate to the Pro Bowl. So I knew that if I can just keep this going and maintain this, I'll be good. And I played for 9 years and, led the NFL in scoring and, kicked a 59-yard field goal in the game in one preseason game. And I was once the most accurate kicker in NFL history. And I say all those things not to impress you. I say all these things to impress upon you that anything is possible. I was officially 5'7". I don't even like to say that because I like to say I'm 5'8", 5'7", 180 pounds and a very average athlete. And I was able to do things as good or better than a lot of the kickers at the time that I was competing against, whether they were guys came in for camp or guys that I was kind of competing against on the other team we were playing against. And so I'm very proud of that. I'm very honored that I had that opportunity. But that really leads me into my next point as far as what it took, to get to that level. A lot of perseverance and a lot of dedication, sweat, blood, and tears, all that jazz you probably all heard before. But it was a lifestyle. It was, stretching, running, I won't say lifting a lot because I'm not a big fan of lifting a lot of weight. I do lift and maintain. I don't want to get bulky and big, and it's not good for my kicking. So all those things I had to do. Lifestyle change with regards to nutrition. Again, I wasn't always the greatest, but I always paid attention because I knew that, my body would be affected by what I put in it. And, that old adage is they say that you are what you eat. That is true to some sense, but when I'm shifting gears here and talking about what I'm up to next, that adage is not necessarily true because I believe we are what we absorb. And so all this time I've been retired, I've dabbled in a bunch of different things, and I got to say that even when I was playing football and even after I retired, I had a lot of companies. They were a lot of supplement companies or nutritional product companies that would always, Metrics was one of them. They always wanted an endorsement. They wanted me to endorse or support their products. Some direct sales companies with their supplements and nutritional products. Of course, I'm an open-minded person, and so I usually say, sure, yeah, I'd love to try it, And I can honestly say that none of them really worked, and it goes back to that absorption. And now, rewind a couple of years, less than 2 years ago, I was introduced to a company called 3, and they were brand new. February 20th of 2023 is when they actually opened the doors for business, and I joined the company about a month into that, and the products that they have, of course, I did it again. I'll say, yeah, sure, I'll try the products. I'm definitely interested in health and wellness and proactive wellness ultimately, and I want to stay away from the doctor. I don't want to see doctors. And if you think about it, in reality, doctors are really meant to be reactive. They are there to treat problems after they persist. Now, I understand if you break a bone or if you have, back issues like I did. I've had 4 back surgeries during my NFL career. That was not fun. I got a staph infection from one of them in my spine. I definitely could have died. After the fact, they told me it was one of the most deadly staph infections you could ever have, and it was in your spine. I'm like, well, thank you. The rehab from that was torture. It was not fun, but here I am. But ultimately, with regards to just, that mindset of being proactive and not wanting to see the doctor, and that's really where I think our society is backwards. We've become so addicted to just reaching out or having a doctor prescribe something to help a problem that we already have. Well, why don't you look back and see, why do you have that problem? We have to understand, I'm a reverse engineer by heart. Okay. Even with my kicking, I own a kicking academy. I've had it for 18 years. That's another huge passion of mine. Proform kicking. I do a lot of stuff with that. And when I'm looking at the technique and analyzing things, when I'm coaching, I go backwards, and there's a cause and effect. And so you have to find the root cause of the problems that happen later on in the approach. For example, within the kick itself, there's certain things that cause certain issues, and you got to go back to the root of the actual problem that gives you those extra problems towards the end of the kick itself. Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about with proactive wellness. Okay, if you can find ways to avoid all these problems and be proactive about your health, and stay away from the doctors, that's what I want to do, and I want to help people understand that concept. Unfortunately, if you look back in history, big pharma was really kind of, when they first started making, medicinal medicines and remedies. That's what they called them back then. They were all from natural resources, plants, right? Things like that were just given to us we didn't have the technology to simulate things or make things synthetically, which we do now. And that's the reason why big pharma is not natural product anymore. It's all a bunch of synthetic chemicals that they've made on a cheap level. Okay, so because years ago, I think it was around in the 60s, they discovered that they could actually start creating vitamins or synthetically making vitamins. They thought, well, let's just do that instead of getting the vitamins from the plants. But the problem is that those vitamins weren't exactly an exact fit for our bodies. Okay, so with regards to understanding the concept of consuming natural products that are ideal for our bodies. God made us a certain way, and there's certain, things in our bodies, the cells in our bodies, everything within our bodies. Those molecules and things like that, they have to match. They have to get absorbed. They have to work, and they're coming from something synthetically made. They can actually cause a lot of problems and even death. Okay, so when you're talking about big pharma and taking a lot of pills and being, more so reactive instead of proactive, you're basically, risking, having some health issues. And so I'm a huge advocate of being proactive and making sure that you're supplementing with products that actually work. And the reason I bring up supplementation is because, again, going back to our society and the foods that we're consuming now, they are not good. Do some research. Find some Doritos. Find just your normal stuff that you would find in your grocery store. And by the way, you ever heard of this? If there's a health food section in the grocery store, what does that make the rest of the grocery store? Think about that for a second, okay? And those health foods are more expensive, aren't they? Because it requires a lot more, work to make, and they're synthetic. Not that they're not synthetic. So they're real products that actually have a lot more cost in manufacturing these and making these actually legitimate for people to consume. And so when you look at the reality of the situation, we are consuming a lot of junk. Go back to my point, look at Doritos, look at the label of Doritos in the United States. Okay, then go over to Italy, look at the label of Doritos over in Italy. You're going to find probably less than half of the ingredients you'll find in the United States label is going to be on the label in Italy. So they're using a lot less ingredients, natural ingredients. They're not using food colors and things like that to make your Fruit Loops nice and pretty. Again, it's all about money and marketing. Think about all these. Why do these companies making all these cereals? Why do they make them all attractive for kids with these bright colors? Well, where do you think those colors are coming from? Chemicals, yes, you're right. Poisons, you're right. There's a lot of things that these companies are putting in those products, ultimately just because of the fact that they are enticing for families to purchase. And of course, when you look at the food industry and you look at the health food industry, I know the FDA just now put eggs back on the nutrient list as far as healthy again. You always used to think that eggs were so bad for us because of the cholesterol, but guess what? Your brain is cholesterol. It's all cholesterol. Okay, there is good cholesterol in eggs, in egg yolks specifically. So don't get fooled by these big marketing and big pharma sort of ads and things like that come out and persuade you to buy their products because of what they look like. And now they can label them as healthy food. As a matter of fact, didn't they try to put cereal on that list too as a healthy food? It's not. Most cereals out there are not healthy at all, but yet we always think they are. I used to eat a lot of cereal back in the day because I thought, they're healthy, a little sugar, I'll burn it off, no big problem, right? Well, I'm learning. And again, as I've grown and as I've progressed with my proactive wellness journey, I have learned a lot. And so with that said, I just want to let you know that, if you're interested in your longevity, the mental awareness, just mental things in life and how to deal with certain issues and problems and struggles in life, and kind of learn a little bit about, maybe a lot about what it is you can do to better your health and your wellness, and kind of understand what it takes. It might be a little bit of a lifestyle change, but you'll thank yourself because you're going to feel a lot better. I went through periods of time where I got heavy. I went through divorce, and my stress was food. I ate a lot of food and I stopped working out. Well, guess what? I got fat. I did. I put on a lot of weight. I was a little over 200 pounds. Remember, guys, I was 180 pounds average. That's really what I am now. Probably about 175, 178, somewhere in there. And that's where my natural weight would be. But I got really heavy and it was miserable. I woke up one day and realized how difficult it was to tie my shoes. And that was my wake up call. Like, you got to get off your butt. You got to get back in shape. And on top of that, guys, true, honest story. My back was not feeling good. The heavier I got, the more out of shape I got, the worse my back felt. And so that was another huge incentive for me to get my butt back in shape and start, taking care of myself, because in the long term, it's going to be beneficial for me to maintain that healthy lifestyle. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed the first introduction of the Zealous Wellness podcast by myself, Mike Hollis. If you're familiar with the word zealous, it's basically proactive. So I'm talking about proactive wellness and just kind of what it means and how to become that person that you've always wanted to be. It's never going to be easy, but once you get into the mindset of that, change your mindset. That's the whole mental side I'm going to be discussing in a lot of these podcasts, is how to deal with things that you don't think you're capable of doing. Because believe me, I've gave you many examples of all the things that I've dealt with that I didn't think I was capable of doing, but a higher strength inside me said, you're a fool if you believe that. So again, I want to end it with this, is mentioning that we are all incredibly capable of doing so much more than we think we can do. That is a huge mindset. As long as you just have the ability to understand that you are capable of those things, and understand also that we all fail. I never was 100% on all my field goals. I've failed in a lot of things in life, but that's not going to stop me from growing. They always talk about failure is a learning experience. Use your failures to learn and grow from. And that's really, it's not rocket science. It's you probably heard all that before, but I'm living proof, and I'm going to get into the deep mental side of how to really control that and change your mindset, because the lifestyle change does require a little bit of a mindset change as well. And so I hope you enjoyed the information, and I promise you there's going to be a lot more as we go, and we're going to talk a lot about proactive wellness. We're going to talk some football. I will have guests later on in all different aspects of life, whether it's food, nutrition, water, football, sports, anything that is relatable to mindset. Olympic people, maybe we'll get some people like that on, but I'm definitely looking forward to sharing my experiences with Zealous Wellness. And thank you again for joining me on my very first podcast. We'll see you next week at 5:30 Eastern time. Have a good night.